The text arrived at 3:47 p.m., just as I was adjusting the smart thermostat for our anniversary party. 23 years of marriage, and Maren still couldn't lie convincingly. Blizzard shut the road. I can't get back from the conference. So sorry, honey. Cancel tonight. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I stared at my phone, then walked to the living room window. Bright October sunshine painted our suburban street in golden hues. Not a cloud in sight. I pulled up the highway traffic cam on my tablet. Interstate 94 was clear as glass, cars flowing normally toward Chicago. My wife was a pharmaceutical sales rep, supposedly attending a 3-day conference in Milwaukee, the same conference where her regional manager, Nolan Trent, was presenting. The same Nolan she'd mentioned 47 times in the past month. Yes, I'd counted. I'm Elias Crowley, Senior Network Analyst for Morrison Tech Solutions. I solve problems for a living, and right now, I had a big one. My marriage was apparently built on lies. The house felt different suddenly, cold despite the perfect temperature control. Our smart home, with its automated everything, seemed to mock me. All this technology, and I couldn't automate trust. I walked to Maren's home office, a pristine space that smelled like her expensive perfume. Her laptop was gone naturally, but she'd left her car keys on the desk. Wait, her car keys? I grabbed them and headed to the garage. Her silver Lexus sat there, engine cold. If she'd driven to Milwaukee yesterday, how was her car here? My hands shook as I started the engine and checked the GPS history. Last destination, the Grand View Hotel, downtown, 20 minutes from our house. The pieces clicked together with brutal clarity. Maren had never left town. She was holed up at a luxury hotel with Nolan, probably laughing about her clueless husband while planning their romantic weekend. I sat in her car for 10 minutes, letting the rage build. 23 years. Our daughter Ruby's entire life. All of it apparently meant less than whatever Nolan offered. But I'm not the type to scream or throw things. I solve problems methodically. I went back inside and opened my laptop. Time to do what I do best, gather data. Maren's phone records were easy to access through our family plan. Dozens of calls to Nolan's number, many lasting over an hour. Late-night texts. The pattern started 6 weeks ago, right after their team-building retreat in Detroit. Her credit card statements told another story. Expensive lingerie from boutiques I'd never heard of. Dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together. A hotel charge from last Tuesday, a day she claimed to be visiting clients. I dug deeper. Her company's travel portal showed no conference registration for this weekend. No approved expense reports. No hotel bookings. Every lie unraveled with surgical precision. The anniversary party was supposed to start at 6. I'd invited our neighbors, Maren's work friends, even her sister Kate. 30 people expecting to celebrate our marriage. I looked at the decorations I'd hung that morning. Silver streamers, photos from our wedding, a banner reading 23 years strong. The irony was suffocating. My phone buzzed. A text from our neighbor, Janet. Can't wait for tonight. Maren must be so excited. I stared at the message, then at the evidence spread across my desk. A plan began forming in my mind. If Maren wanted to play games, I'd show her what happened when you challenged someone who understood systems. I opened Facebook and updated my relationship status to single. Then I posted a photo of the clear highway cam with the caption, "Funny how blizzards work these days. Weather lies. Anniversary, truth." My phone immediately started buzzing with confused messages from friends and family. I ignored them all. Instead, I called our bank and froze our joint accounts, citing suspicious activity. Technically true, spending money on an affair counted as suspicious in my book. Then I canceled Maren's credit cards. Also technically justified. If she wasn't where she claimed to be, her cards might be compromised. I was just getting started. At 4:30, I sent Maren a screenshot of the traffic cam along with her GPS history, no words needed. Her response came within minutes. "What the hell is wrong with you? I can explain everything." "I'm sure you can," I typed back. "Explain it to our guests at 6. I'll make sure everyone hears your explanation." "Elias, don't do anything stupid. We can work this out." "We're way past that. See you at the party. Or don't. I hear you're snowed in." I turned off my phone and finished setting up for the party. If this was the end of my marriage, it would be memorable. The guests started arriving at 6. I played the perfect host, greeting everyone with drinks and appetizers, accepting congratulations on our anniversary. The cognitive dissonance was almost amusing. "Where's Maren?" asked her friend Jennifer, a gossipy HR manager from the pharmaceutical company. "Great question," I said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "She's supposedly trapped by a blizzard in perfect weather. Amazing how nature works." Jennifer's smile faltered. "I'm sorry, what?" I pulled out my tablet and showed her the traffic cam. "See any snow? Because I don't." Word spread quickly through the party. Whispered conversations, confused glances. The festive atmosphere curdled into something uncomfortable. At 7:15, car doors slammed in the driveway. Maren burst through the front door, her face flushed with anger and panic. Behind her, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, was Nolan Trent. The party went silent. Maren was disheveled, her usually perfect hair mussed, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. Nolan hung back by the door, a tall man with graying temples and the kind of artificial confidence that came from expensive suits and corner offices. "Elias," Maren said, her voice strained. "We need to talk, privately." "No," I said calmly, setting down my beer. "We need to talk right here, in front of everyone, since this is our anniversary party and you've brought your boyfriend." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Nolan's face went pale. "It's not what you think," Maren said desperately. "Nolan gave me a ride back when my car broke down. We were just—" "Your car's in the garage," I interrupted. "Has been all day. Want me to show everyone the GPS history?" More whispers. Someone pulled out a phone, probably to record this disaster. "You're embarrassing yourself," Maren hissed. "I'm embarrassing myself?" I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "I'm not the one who spent the weekend at the Grandview Hotel while lying about a non-existent blizzard." Nolan stepped forward, trying to salvage the situation. "Look, there's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding," I said, "is thinking I'm stupid enough to believe your lies." I walked to my laptop and pulled up Maren's phone records, projecting them onto our wall-mounted TV. The crowd leaned in, reading the timestamps and call durations. 47 calls in 5 weeks, I announced, including a 2-hour conversation last Tuesday at midnight. Must have been discussing quarterly sales reports. Maren's sister, Kate, pushed through the crowd. "Maren, is this true?" The silence stretched until it became an answer. "Everyone out," Maren said quietly. "Please, just leave." But I wasn't done. "Actually, there's one more thing." I pulled up her credit card statements on the TV. Expensive dinners, hotel charges, lingerie purchases, all while telling me we needed to budget better. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Nolan edged toward the door, but I blocked his path. "Leaving so soon? You just got here. Stay for cake. We're celebrating 23 years of marriage. Well, 22 years and 11 months, technically." "You're insane," Nolan muttered. "I'm thorough," I corrected. "There's a difference." The party dissolved into chaos. Guests filed out in uncomfortable silence, some shooting sympathetic looks my way, others staring at Maren with disgust. Her work friends clustered around Jennifer, whispering frantically. Within 20 minutes, only family remained. Kate looked devastated. Our daughter Ruby, 17 and mortified, glared at me like this was somehow my fault. "Dad, you've lost your mind," Ruby said. "You can't just destroy Mom like that." I didn't destroy anything, I replied. I revealed what was already destroyed. Maren sank onto the couch, her perfect facade finally cracking. Elias, please, can we talk about this rationally? Rationally? I felt something cold settle in my chest. There's nothing rational about this. You lied to me, to our daughter, to everyone. You made me look like a fool. I never meant for it to happen, she whispered. But it did happen. And now, everyone knows. I looked around at the wreckage of our anniversary party, the decorations now seeming pathetic, the photos mocking, the banner a cruel joke. I want you out of the house tonight, I said quietly. You can't kick me out of my own home, Maren protested. Watch me. I had more evidence, more plans, more ways to make them pay. This was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up alone for the first time in 23 years. Maren had spent the night at Kate's house, taking Ruby with her. The silence felt like freedom. My phone showed 47 missed calls and countless text messages. I ignored them all while drinking coffee and planning my next moves. The story had already spread beyond our neighborhood. Social media was buzzing with speculation and gossip. Someone had posted a video of last night's confrontation, and it was gaining traction fast. I felt no shame about the public humiliation. Maren had humiliated me first, just privately. Now we were even. At work, my colleagues treated me like a celebrity. The IT department had always been full of divorced guys who understood betrayal. They offered support, advice, and most importantly, technical expertise. You need a good lawyer, said Dave, my closest friend at Morrison Tech. And you need to document everything. Already on it, I replied, showing him the files I'd compiled. Phone records, credit card statements, GPS data, hotel receipts. I've got enough evidence to bury her in divorce court. Dave whistled appreciatively. Remind me never to cheat on my wife. You're scary when you're methodical. That afternoon, I received a call from Jennifer, Maren's friend from the pharmaceutical company. Elias, we need to talk, she said. What you did last night was cruel and unnecessary. What I did was tell the truth, I replied. If the truth seems cruel, maybe you should question the behavior, not the messenger. Maren made a mistake, but she doesn't deserve to be destroyed over it. A mistake? I laughed. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. This was a deliberate, calculated betrayal that lasted months. She's a good person who got caught up in something complicated. She's a liar and a cheater. The complications are her own making. Jennifer's voice turned cold. You're going to regret this. Maren has friends, and we're not going to stand by while you ruin her life. Bring it on, I said, and hung up. That evening, I drove to the Ironworks, a boxing gym in the industrial part of town. I'd started training there 6 months ago, partly for fitness, and partly because I'd sensed my marriage was deteriorating. The physical exertion helped me think clearly. Toby, the gym owner, was a former heavyweight contender with scarred knuckles and a surprisingly gentle demeanor. He'd become something of a mentor, though I'd never told him about my personal problems. You look different tonight, Toby said, watching me work the heavy bag. Lighter somehow. I ended my marriage yesterday, I said between punches. Good for you. Marriage should make you stronger, not weaker. If it's not working, cut it loose. I explained the situation while continuing to pummel the bag. Toby listened without judgment, occasionally offering technique corrections. So what's your plan now? He asked. Make them pay, I said simply. Revenge is a dangerous game, Elias. Make sure you don't lose yourself in it. But I was already lost. The mild-mannered network analyst was gone, replaced by someone harder and more calculating. Someone who understood that nice guys finished last. Over the next few days, I implemented what I privately called the humiliation campaign. First, I leaked Maren's affair to her company's anonymous ethics hotline. Workplace relationships between managers and subordinates violated company policy, especially when they involved falsified expense reports and fraudulent travel claims. Second, I shared screenshots of her lies with our mutual friends, letting them draw their own conclusions about her character. Third, I hired a private investigator to document Nolan's activities. It turned out he was married with 2 teenage kids. His wife deserved to know what kind of man she'd married. The results were swift and devastating. Maren was suspended from her job pending an investigation. Her friends began distancing themselves as the evidence mounted. Even Kate, her own sister, started questioning the narrative of innocent mistakes. Nolan's situation was worse. His wife, Linda, confronted him with evidence of the affair. Their marriage imploded spectacularly, with Linda taking the kids and half his assets. But they weren't finished trying to fight back. On Friday night, I was leaving the ironworks when Nolan confronted me in the parking lot. He looked haggard, his expensive suit wrinkled, his confident demeanor replaced by desperation. "You destroyed my life," he said, blocking my path to my car. "You destroyed your own life," I replied calmly. "I just made sure everyone knew about it. My kids won't talk to me. My wife filed for divorce. I'm probably going to lose my job." "Consequences," I said. "Amazing how they work." Nolan stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his size. "You think you're so smart, hiding behind your computers and your evidence, but you're just a pathetic little man whose wife got bored." That touched a nerve. At least I'm not a middle-aged loser who preys on subordinates because his own marriage is over. "Maren came to me," Nolan snarled. "She was desperate to feel wanted by a real man instead of some tech nerd who spends his life staring at screens." I smiled, which seemed to unnerve him. "Is that what she told you? That she was unhappy? That I was neglecting her?" Classic cheater playbook, Nolan. Make the betrayal seem justified. It's the truth. The truth is, you're a predator who used his position to manipulate a vulnerable employee. The truth is, you threw away your family for a few months of hotel affair. The truth is, you're pathetic. Nolan's face flushed red. "You little—" He swung at me, a clumsy haymaker that I easily avoided thanks to months of training with Toby. I countered with a sharp jab to his solar plexus, doubling him over. "Stay down," I advised as he gasped for air, "and stay away from me and my family." I left him wheezing in the parking lot and drove home, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The physical confrontation had been satisfying, but it was just the beginning. That weekend, I received an unexpected visit from Ruby. She looked older somehow, the events of the past week having stripped away some of her teenage certainty. "Dad, I need to ask you something," she said, sitting across from me in the kitchen. "Go ahead." "Did you really freeze Mom's bank accounts?" "I froze our joint accounts, yes, and canceled cards that were being used fraudulently." "But she can't pay for anything. She's staying with Aunt Kate and borrowing money for basic stuff." I felt a flicker of something. Not quite guilt, but awareness of collateral damage. "She can get a job. She's educated and experienced." "After you got her fired?" "I didn't get her fired. She violated company policy and falsified expense reports. Her employer made their own decision." Ruby studied my face. "You're different now. Colder." "I'm realistic now. There's a difference." "Mom says you've become obsessed with revenge." "Mom says a lot of things. Most of them are lies." Ruby flinched at the bitterness in my voice. "She made a mistake, Dad. A big one. But she's still my mother. And she's still my wife, technically. That doesn't change what she did or excuse the consequences." "What consequences? You've destroyed her entire life." I leaned forward, meeting my daughter's eyes. "Ruby, your mother didn't just cheat on me. She lied to you, to our friends, to her employer. She stole money through fraudulent expense reports. She humiliated our family. These aren't consequences I imposed. They're the natural results of her choices." "But you're enjoying it," Ruby said quietly. "You're enjoying watching her suffer." She was right, and we both knew it. I was enjoying it. Every moment of Maren's downfall felt like justice served cold. Maybe I am, I admitted. Does that make me a bad person? I don't know, Ruby said, tears in her eyes. I don't know anything anymore. After she left, I sat alone in the house that no longer felt like a home. The silence was complete now. No Maren, no Ruby, just me and the wreckage of 23 years. But I wasn't done yet. The real revenge was still coming. Monday morning brought news that Maren's suspension had become a termination. The company investigation had uncovered not just the affair, but a pattern of expense fraud dating back 8 months. She was finished in pharmaceutical sales. I should have felt satisfied, but instead, I felt empty. Destroying her career had been easier than expected, and somehow less fulfilling. At work, Dave noticed my mood. You look like a man who caught the car he was chasing, he said. Now what? Now I finish what they started, I replied. That evening, I went to the ironworks and found Toby training a new member, a tall, well-dressed man who looked out of place among the blue-collar regulars. It was Nolan. He spotted me immediately, his face hardening with recognition. What's he doing here? He asked Toby. He's a member, Toby replied evenly. Same as you. This is neutral ground. I approached slowly, noting how Nolan's expensive workout gear contrasted with the gym's working-class atmosphere. Trying to get in shape for your divorce proceedings? I asked. Trying to blow off steam without committing murder, Nolan replied. Toby stepped between us. Gentlemen, I run a clean gym. No drama, no personal disputes. You work out your problems with the bags, not with each other. Actually, I said, maybe we could work out our problems in the ring. Just some friendly sparring. Nolan's eyes lit up with interest. He had 4 inches and 30 pounds on me, plus the arrogance of a man who'd never been truly tested. I don't think that's a good idea, Toby said. Come on, Toby, I pressed. We're both adults. We'll keep it clean. Nolan was already nodding. I'd love to settle this like men. Toby looked between us, then shrugged. Your funeral. But I'm refereeing, and my word is law. We spent 20 minutes warming up, sizing each other up across the gym. Nolan moved like an athlete, but his technique was sloppy. He relied on size and aggression rather than skill. I'd been training seriously for 6 months, learning to channel my frustration into precise, controlled violence. Toby had taught me that boxing was chess, not checkers. When we finally stepped into the ring, a small crowd had gathered. Word spread quickly in places like this, 2 guys settling scores. Keep it clean, Toby warned. First fight stops it. Nolan came out aggressive, throwing wild haymakers that looked impressive but left him off balance. I stayed defensive, letting him tire himself while studying his patterns. He was a bully, used to intimidating people with size and position. But bullies rarely knew how to handle real resistance. After 2 minutes of missing me, Nolan was breathing hard. Stand still and fight, he panted. Make me, I replied, slipping another wild swing. That's when I started my counterattack. A sharp jab to his nose, a hook to his ribs, an uppercut that snapped his head back. Each punch carried months of accumulated rage. Every lie Maren had told, every humiliation I'd endured, every moment of self-doubt about my worth as a husband. Nolan stumbled backward, red liquid streaming from his nose. Time! Toby called, but I was already stepping away. The crowd murmured appreciatively. In their world, the smaller man winning earned respect. Had enough? I asked Nolan as he dabbed at his nose with a towel. Lucky shots, he muttered, but his confidence was shaken. Want to go another round? He looked around at the watching faces, calculating the cost of backing down versus the risk of further humiliation. Pride won, as I'd known it would. The second round was shorter. Nolan came out desperate, throwing everything he had. I weathered the initial storm, then systematically dismantled him. A combination to the body dropped him to one knee. When he stood up, gasping, I could see the fear in his eyes. This is for my marriage, I said, and hit him with a perfect right cross that sent him sprawling. Toby stepped in immediately. "That's enough." Nolan lay on his back, staring at the ceiling lights. Red liquid ran from his nose and mouth. His expensive workout clothes were stained with sweat and defeat. "You okay?" Toby asked him. Nolan nodded weakly and struggled to sit up. The watching crowd began to disperse, their entertainment concluded. I knelt beside him and spoke quietly, so only he could hear. "Your wife Linda deserves better than you. Your kids deserve better. Maren deserves better, though she's too stupid to realize it." "Go to hell," he whispered. "I'm already there," I replied. "But at least I'm not alone." I helped him to his feet, a gesture that looked magnanimous but felt hollow. Beating him up had been satisfying in the moment, but it didn't fill the emptiness inside me. As I was leaving the gym, Toby pulled me aside. "Feel better?" he asked. "Not really. Revenge rarely does. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to fade. Maybe. But sometimes poison is all you have left." Toby studied my face with the wisdom of someone who'd seen violence solve nothing. "What you have left is a choice, Elias. You can keep going down this path, or you can find a way to move forward." "Forward to what? My wife is a cheater, my daughter hates me, and my marriage is over. What exactly am I moving forward to?" "That's up to you to figure out." I drove home through empty streets, my knuckles aching from the fight. The house felt even more hollow than before, filled with the ghosts of better times. But I wasn't done yet. The boxing match had been personal satisfaction. What came next would be professional destruction. I opened my laptop and began researching Nolan's background more thoroughly. His financial records, his employment history, his social media presence. Everyone had secrets, and I was very good at finding them. By morning, I'd discovered that Nolan had been skimming money from his expense account for years, using fake client dinners and inflated travel costs to fund his lifestyle. The amounts were small enough to avoid detection, but large enough to constitute felony theft. I compiled the evidence into a neat package and sent it anonymously to his company's fraud investigation unit. Within hours, Nolan was suspended pending investigation. By the end of the week, he'd been terminated and faced potential criminal charges. His divorce proceedings accelerated as Linda's lawyers seized on the new evidence of financial misconduct. She would get everything: the house, the kids, the retirement accounts. Nolan went from successful executive to unemployed pariah in less than 2 weeks. His LinkedIn profile showed increasingly desperate attempts to find new employment, but word travels fast in corporate circles. I felt no satisfaction from his destruction. It had been too easy, too mechanical, like debugging code: find the error, fix the problem, move on. But the problem wasn't fixed. Maren was still out there, probably plotting her own revenge. Our divorce was proceeding through lawyers, with her demanding half of everything despite her infidelity. Ruby was still staying with Kate, refusing to speak to me except through intermediaries. She blamed me for destroying the family, as if I'd been the one who chose to cheat. I was winning every battle but losing the war. And the worst part was, I no longer cared about winning. I just wanted it all to end. But ending wasn't an option yet. There was still one more move to make, one final confrontation that would settle everything once and for all. I picked up my phone and called Kate. "I want to talk to Maren," I said when she answered. "She doesn't want to talk to you. Tell her I have a proposition. One last meeting to settle everything. No lawyers, no witnesses, just the two of us." "Elias, I don't think—" "Tell her I know about Jennifer." The silence stretched long enough that I thought she'd hung up. "What about Jennifer?" Kate finally asked. "Just tell Maren what I said. She'll understand." Because I'd discovered one final secret, one last betrayal that would complete my revenge. Jennifer, Maren's loyal friend and defender, had been more than just a friend. The phone records showed calls between them dating back 2 years, often late at night, often lasting hours. Jennifer wasn't just covering for Maren's affair. She was in love with her, had been for years. And Maren had been using that devotion to manipulate her, to create an ally in her war against me. It was the perfect final twist, the revelation that would destroy not just Maren's remaining friendships, but her entire support network. All I had to do was pull the trigger. The meeting was set for Saturday afternoon at Riverside Park, a neutral location where Maren felt safe from my increasingly erratic behavior. Her words filtered through Kate, who was trying to play peacemaker in a war she didn't understand. I arrived early and chose a picnic table with clear sight lines in all directions. Old habits from my military father, who taught me that information and positioning were the keys to any conflict. Maren arrived precisely on time, looking smaller somehow than she had during our marriage. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by discount store basics. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail instead of her usual salon styling. Unemployment suited her poorly. "You look terrible," she said, sitting across from me. "Divorce will do that," I replied. "How's the job search going?" Her jaw tightened. "You know exactly how it's going. You made sure I'd never work in pharmaceuticals again. I documented your expense fraud and workplace violations. Your industry made its own decisions about your employability. Same result." "Same result," I agreed. "So what's your plan now? Keep living off Kate's charity? Find some other married executive to seduce?" "I want this to end, Elias. The lawyers, the fighting, the constant warfare. It's destroying everyone, including Ruby." "Ruby's destruction began when you decided to cheat on her father. Everything since then has been consequences." Maren leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "What do you want? Money? The house? Full custody? Name your price for making this stop." "I want the truth." "You have the truth. I had an affair with Nolan. It's over. He's gone. I made a mistake and I'm paying for it." "That's not the truth. That's just the surface." I pulled out my phone and opened the call log analysis I'd prepared. 2 years of late-night calls with Jennifer, hundreds of hours of conversation, text messages that read more like love letters than friendship. Maren's face went white. "You're fishing." "Jennifer Chen, HR manager at Meridian Pharmaceuticals, divorced 3 years ago. No children. Lives alone in a condo downtown. Has been in love with you since college when you were roommates." "Stop." "The affair with Nolan wasn't spontaneous. Jennifer orchestrated it. She knew about his gambling debts, his marital problems, his pattern of inappropriate relationships with female employees. She fed you information about his vulnerabilities and coached you on how to approach him." "You're insane." "Am I? Because the timeline is fascinating. Jennifer gets passed over for promotion in January. I get a consulting contract with Meridian's parent company in February, reviewing their HR compliance systems. Jennifer realizes I might discover her own policy violations. March, she starts pushing you toward Nolan." Maren stood up abruptly. "I'm not listening to this." "Sit down," I said quietly, "because we're just getting to the interesting part." Something in my tone made her hesitate. She sat back down, but her hands were shaking. "Jennifer's plan was elegant," I continued. "Get you involved with Nolan, document the affair, then use it to destroy both of you. She figured you'd divorce me and come running to her for comfort. Meanwhile, Nolan would be fired for his violations, clearing the way for her promotion." "That's not what happened." "No, it's not, because Jennifer underestimated me. She thought I'd be the typical betrayed husband, angry but ineffective. She didn't count on me being thorough." I showed Maren a series of screenshots from Jennifer's personal email account. Love letters she never sent, photos of you she took without permission, a detailed journal documenting her obsession with you dating back 15 years. Maren stared at the evidence, her face cycling through disbelief, recognition, and horror. "She's been manipulating you for years," I said. "Every relationship you've had, she's found ways to sabotage. Every career opportunity she's influenced. She's been systematically isolating you, making you dependent on her friendship." "No," Maren whispered. "Jennifer has always supported me. Jennifer has always controlled you. The affair was just her latest attempt to separate you from anyone who might compete for your attention." I pulled up the final piece of evidence, security footage from the Meridian building showing Jennifer accessing Nolan's office after hours, planting evidence of his gambling debts where Maren would find it. "She created the opportunity and guided you toward it. You thought you were making independent choices, but you were following a script she wrote." Maren buried her face in her hands. "Oh God." She knew about my marriage problems. She knew I was feeling neglected and unappreciated. She kept telling me I deserved better. "She told you what you wanted to hear. Classic manipulation. But the affair was real. My feelings for Nolan were real. Were they? Or were they what Jennifer convinced you to feel?" The question hung between us like a blade. Maren looked up, her eyes red with tears and realization. "What do you want me to do with this information?" she asked. "Nothing. I'm going to handle Jennifer myself." "Elias, don't do anything." "Anything what? Illegal, immoral, destructive?" I laughed bitterly. That ship sailed months ago. I stood up, gathering my evidence. "The divorce proceeds as planned. You get nothing beyond what the law requires. Ruby can choose where she wants to live, but she gets the truth about what happened. And Jennifer? Jennifer gets exactly what she gave you. The truth." I walked away, leaving Maren alone at the picnic table. In my rearview mirror, I could see her still sitting there, staring at nothing, processing the revelation that her entire affair had been orchestrated by her best friend. But I wasn't done with Jennifer yet. She'd been pulling strings from behind the scenes, thinking she was safe from consequences. Time to teach her what happened when you manipulated the wrong person's life. That evening, I compiled everything I'd learned about Jennifer's obsession with Maren. The emails, the photos, the journal entries, the evidence of her workplace manipulations. Then I packaged it all into a comprehensive report. I sent copies to Meridian's executive team, their legal department, and their board of directors. Jennifer's pattern of harassment, stalking, and emotional manipulation painted a clear picture of an employee who posed a serious liability risk. I also sent copies to Maren's sister Kate, along with a detailed explanation of how Jennifer had orchestrated the entire affair. Kate deserved to know that the woman she'd been hosting in her home was a master manipulator. Finally, I sent a copy to Jennifer herself, along with a simple message: "Game over." The response was swift and devastating. Jennifer was terminated immediately and escorted from the building by security. Meridian's lawyers sent her a cease and desist order prohibiting any contact with current or former employees. Kate threw her out of the house after reading the evidence. Maren, faced with the truth about her best friend, cut off all contact. Within 48 hours, Jennifer went from puppet master to pariah, her carefully constructed web of manipulation exposed and destroyed. But the victory felt hollow. I'd won every battle, destroyed every enemy, extracted perfect revenge for every betrayal. And yet I felt nothing but emptiness. My marriage was over. My daughter barely spoke to me. My house felt like a mausoleum. I'd become exactly what Maren had accused me of being: cold, calculating, and cruel. The problem with revenge was that it required you to become someone you didn't recognize, and once you crossed that line, there was no going back. I sat in my empty house, surrounded by the wreckage of 23 years, and wondered if winning was worth it. 3 weeks later, I was debugging network code at Morrison Tech when Dave approached my desk with an unusual expression. "You've got visitors," he said. "Conference room B." I found Maren and Ruby waiting for me, both looking nervous. This was the first time I'd seen my daughter since the park meeting with Maren. "Thank you for seeing us," Maren said formally. I sat across from them, noting how they'd positioned themselves, Ruby slightly behind Maren, as if seeking protection. What can I do for you? We want to call a truce, Ruby said. This has gone far enough. Has it? Because from where I sit, justice has barely been served. Dad, you've destroyed 3 people's lives. Mom lost her job, Nolan lost everything, and Jennifer… Ruby shuddered. What you did to Jennifer was cruel. What I did to Jennifer was expose the truth about what she did to us. She's in therapy now, Maren said quietly. Intensive counseling for obsessive behavior. Her therapist says she's been struggling with these feelings for years. Mental illness doesn't excuse manipulation and harassment. No, it doesn't. But destroying her completely doesn't fix what happened either. I studied their faces, looking for signs of deception or manipulation. Old habits from months of warfare. What exactly are you proposing? I asked. Ruby leaned forward. We want to be a family again, not married, she added quickly, seeing my expression. But functional, co-parents who can be in the same room without destroying each other. Your mother cheated on me for months. She lied to both of us repeatedly. She stole money through expense fraud. Why would I want any relationship with her? Because I'm 17 years old and I need both my parents, Ruby said, her voice cracking. Because this war between you is tearing me apart. The raw pain in my daughter's voice cut through my armor of cynicism. For the first time in months, I felt something other than anger or emptiness. What does your mother want? I asked. Maren spoke carefully, as if navigating a minefield. I want to take responsibility for what I did. Full responsibility, without excuses or justifications. Go ahead. I cheated on you with Nolan. I lied about it repeatedly. I used company resources to fund the affair, which constituted theft. I betrayed your trust, Ruby's trust, and our marriage vows. She paused, gathering herself. I also allowed Jennifer to manipulate me, but that doesn't excuse my choices. I made the decision to have the affair. I made the decision to lie. Those were my choices, and I own the consequences. And what consequences do you think are appropriate? The divorce proceeds as you've outlined. I get nothing beyond basic legal requirements. You get the house, the investments, everything we built together. I'll find a new career and rebuild my life from scratch. That's what's happening anyway. Yes, but I'm agreeing to it voluntarily. No more fighting through lawyers. No more attempts to claim I deserve half of our assets. Clean break, minimal conflict. I looked at Ruby, who was watching me with desperate hope. And in exchange? You stop actively trying to destroy me, Maren said. No more anonymous tips to potential employers. No more spreading evidence of the affair to people who don't need to know. Let me rebuild without sabotage. That's it? And you try to forgive me. Not for my sake, but for Ruby's. She needs at least one parent who isn't consumed by hatred. The request hung in the air between us. Forgiveness seemed impossible after everything that had happened. The betrayal cut too deep, the humiliation too complete. But looking at Ruby's face, I realized that my revenge had created collateral damage I hadn't considered. My daughter was paying the price for my war with her mother. I need time to think about this, I said finally. How much time? Ruby asked. Give me a week. They left, and I spent the rest of the day staring at code without seeing it. That evening, I drove to the ironworks for what had become my daily therapy session with the heavy bag. Toby watched me work out my frustration with leather and steel. You look like a man wrestling with his conscience, he observed. I explained the situation while continuing to punch. Toby listened without judgment, occasionally offering technique corrections. So what's the problem? He asked when I finished. The problem is that forgiveness feels like letting her win. Win what? Her life is destroyed. Her career is over. Her marriage is finished. What exactly would she be winning? The right to move forward without consequences. Sounds like she's facing plenty of consequences. The question is whether you want to keep punishing her or start healing yourself. I don't know how to stop being angry. Anger is useful when it motivates action. But when the action is complete, anger becomes poison. It hurts you more than anyone else. That night, I sat in my empty house and tried to imagine what forgiveness might look like. Not reconciliation, that was impossible. But perhaps an end to active hostility. Perhaps a way for Ruby to have both parents without choosing sides. The idea felt foreign, like learning a new language. I'd been so focused on revenge that I'd forgotten how to consider alternatives. Over the next few days, I found myself observing other divorced families, colleagues who'd managed to co-parent effectively despite their own betrayals and disappointments. It was possible, apparently, to move beyond hatred. But it required a choice I wasn't sure I could make. On Friday evening, Ruby came to the house alone. "Have you decided?" she asked. I'm leaning toward yes, but I have conditions. Her face lit up with hope. What conditions? Your mother gets counseling, real therapy, not just crisis management. She needs to understand why she made the choices she made, so she doesn't repeat them. She's already started, twice a week. Good. Second condition, complete transparency. If she's dating someone, I know about it. If she's struggling financially, I know about it. No more secrets. That seems reasonable. Third condition, you get to choose where you live, but you spend time with both of us. I won't try to turn you against your mother, and she won't try to turn you against me. Deal. And the final condition, this is probationary. If your mother lies to me again about anything, the truce ends permanently. Ruby nodded eagerly. She understands that. We both do. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, for the first time in months. She'd lost weight, and there were dark circles under her eyes. The war between her parents had aged her beyond her 17 years. Okay, I said. Tell your mother I accept her terms. Ruby hugged me, and I realized how much I'd missed that simple contact. Revenge had isolated me from everyone who mattered. Thank you, Dad. This means everything to me. After she left, I walked through the house that would soon be legally mine. It felt different somehow, less like a fortress and more like a home again. I still didn't know if I could truly forgive Maren. The betrayal would always be there, a scar that would never fully heal. But perhaps I could stop actively hating her. Perhaps I could find a way to move forward without carrying the poison of constant anger. It wouldn't be easy. Revenge had been simple. Identify targets, gather evidence, execute plans. Forgiveness was messier, more complicated, without clear endpoints or measurable results. But for Ruby's sake, and maybe for my own, I was willing to try. The war was over. Now came the harder task of learning how to live with peace. 2 months into our uneasy truce, I received an invitation that changed everything. The annual Riverside Neighborhood Block Party, the same community event where Maren and I had been the golden couple for over a decade. This year, I would be attending alone. The invitation came from Janet Morrison, our longtime neighbor, and the unofficial social coordinator of Riverside Drive. Her note was carefully neutral. Hope to see you there, Elias. The neighborhood isn't the same without the Crowley family. I almost declined. The thought of facing dozens of neighbors who'd witnessed the spectacular implosion of my marriage held no appeal. But Ruby convinced me otherwise. You can't hide forever, Dad, she said during one of our weekly dinners. These people were your friends for 20 years. They don't all hate you. They don't all support me either. So, show up and remind them who you really are. The party was scheduled for Saturday afternoon in Riverside Park, the same location where Maren had revealed Jennifer's manipulation. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent Friday evening preparing, though I wasn't sure what I was preparing for. Part of me expected hostility from Maren's supporters. Part of me hoped for vindication from those who'd seen through her lies. Mostly, I just wanted to get through it without creating another scene. Saturday arrived with perfect autumn weather, crisp air, brilliant sunshine, the kind of day that made suburban life seem worthwhile. I walked to the park, carrying a case of beer as my contribution to the communal feast. The party was already in full swing when I arrived. Families clustered around picnic tables, children ran between the playground equipment, and the smell of grilling burgers filled the air. It looked exactly like every other block party we'd attended, except for the absence of my wife. Janet spotted me immediately and hurried over with the determined cheerfulness of someone managing a social crisis. "Elias, I'm so glad you came. Here, let me introduce you to the Hendersons. They moved into the old Patterson place." She guided me through a series of introductions and small talk, clearly trying to ease my re-entry into neighborhood society. Some people were genuinely welcoming. Others offered polite but distant greetings. A few avoided eye contact entirely. I was discussing property tax assessments with Bob Chen, no relation to Jennifer, thankfully, when I noticed a commotion near the pavilion. Maren had arrived, accompanied by Kate and Ruby. The crowd's reaction was immediate and divided. Some neighbors approached to offer support and sympathy. Others turned away or found sudden reasons to be elsewhere. The party split into invisible camps. Team Elias versus Team Maren, with a substantial neutral zone in between. Maren looked nervous but determined. She'd dressed carefully in a simple sundress and cardigan, projecting an image of humble respectability. Her strategy was clear: appear remorseful and vulnerable, let people's natural sympathy override their judgment about her actions. It might have worked, if not for what happened next. Jennifer arrived. I spotted her first, walking across the park with the rigid posture of someone forcing herself to attend an execution. She'd lost weight since her termination, and her usual polished appearance had been replaced by discount store clothes and minimal makeup. The neighborhood fell silent as people recognized her and remembered the stories that had circulated after her exposure. Jennifer Chen, the manipulative puppet master who'd orchestrated the affair that destroyed the Crowley marriage. She walked directly to Maren, who looked horrified to see her. "We need to talk," Jennifer said loudly enough for nearby neighbors to hear. "Not here," Maren replied, glancing around at the watching faces. "Yes, here, in front of everyone. They deserve to know the truth." Janet Morrison hurried over, trying to defuse the situation. "Ladies, perhaps we could—" "Stay out of this," Jennifer snapped. "This is between me and the woman who destroyed my life." The irony was stunning. Jennifer, who'd manipulated Maren into an affair that destroyed multiple families, was positioning herself as the victim. "You destroyed your own life," Maren said quietly. "I never asked you to do what you did. You led me on for years, made me think we had something special. Then you threw it all away for some married executive you barely knew." The crowd was riveted now, witnessing a real-time soap opera unfolding in their peaceful suburban park. Children were ushered away as adults strained to hear every word. "We were friends," Maren said desperately. "That's all we ever were." "Friends?" Jennifer laughed bitterly. "Friends don't spend hours on the phone every night sharing their deepest secrets. Friends don't send each other love letters disguised as support messages. Friends don't plan elaborate schemes to eliminate romantic rivals." She pulled out her phone and began reading from what sounded like text messages. "I can't stop thinking about you. I dream about the day when you'll realize we're meant to be together. I would do anything to make you happy, even if it means destroying everyone who stands between us." "Stop," Maren pleaded. "Those are your words, Maren, from your messages to me. Should I read more?" I watched this unfold with fascination and growing realization. Jennifer wasn't just exposing her own obsession. She was revealing that Maren had encouraged it, had knowingly used Jennifer's feelings to manipulate her into providing support for the affair. The crowd was murmuring now, pieces clicking into place. This wasn't just a story about a manipulative friend orchestrating an affair. This was about two women who'd used each other, with Maren playing Jennifer's emotions to get what she wanted. Ruby looked mortified, staring at her mother with dawning understanding. Kate had gone pale, probably realizing that she'd been defending someone who was more calculating than she'd believed. "You used me," Jennifer continued, her voice rising. "You knew exactly how I felt about you, and you used those feelings to get me to help you cheat on your husband. You made me complicit in destroying a family, then discarded me when it became inconvenient." "That's not how it happened," Maren protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it? Then explain these messages where you talk about managing Elias and keeping him distracted while you figured out your exit strategy. Explain the ones where you discuss how to handle Ruby when she found out about the divorce." Each revelation hit the crowd like a physical blow. This wasn't a woman who'd made a mistake in a moment of weakness. This was someone who'd coldly calculated the destruction of her family while manipulating a mentally unstable friend to provide cover. I felt a strange mix of vindication and disgust. Vindication because Jennifer was doing my work for me, exposing Maren's true character to everyone who'd been willing to excuse her behavior. Disgust because I was watching two damaged women destroy each other in public. "You want the truth?" Jennifer shouted, addressing the crowd directly. "Maren Crowley is a sociopath who destroys everyone who cares about her. She didn't have an affair because she was unhappy or neglected. She had an affair because she was bored and wanted to see if she could get away with it." She turned back to Maren. "And when it all fell apart, you threw me under the bus to save yourself. You let everyone believe I was some crazy stalker when you were the one encouraging my obsession." The park had gone completely silent, except for Jennifer's voice and the distant sound of traffic. Even the children had stopped playing, sensing the adult drama unfolding nearby. Maren looked around at the watching faces, neighbors who'd known her for 20 years, who'd attended her dinner parties and birthday celebrations, who'd considered her a pillar of the community. "I never meant for any of this to happen," she said weakly. "Yes, you did," I said, speaking for the first time since Jennifer's arrival. "You planned all of it." I walked over to where they stood, feeling the crowd's attention shift to me. This was my moment, my chance to deliver the final blow that would complete Maren's destruction. "You want to know the truth about my ex-wife?" I asked the crowd. "She's exactly what Jennifer says she is, a manipulator who uses people's emotions against them. She used Jennifer's obsession to provide cover for her affair. She used Nolan's marital problems to justify her own betrayal. She used my trust to steal money and lie to our daughter." I pulled out my phone and opened the folder of evidence I'd compiled months earlier. I have documentation of everything: the expense fraud, the emotional manipulation, the calculated destruction of our family. "Would you like me to share it?" Maren's face crumpled. "Elias, please, think about Ruby." I looked at my daughter, who was staring at her mother with a mixture of love and horror. Ruby had been the one person still defending Maren, still believing in her capacity for redemption. "Ruby deserves to know who her mother really is," I said, "just like everyone else here." But as I looked at my daughter's face, I realized that destroying Maren completely would destroy Ruby too. She'd already lost her intact family, her sense of security, her faith in her parents' marriage. Did she need to lose her faith in her mother's basic humanity as well? The crowd waited for my decision. Jennifer watched with anticipation, eager to see her former friend completely annihilated. Maren stood frozen, waiting for the final blow. I thought about the months of rage and planning, the careful construction of evidence and systematic destruction of enemies. I thought about the man I'd become, cold, calculating, ruthless in pursuit of perfect revenge. And I thought about the man I'd been before all this started, someone who solved problems rather than creating them, who built things rather than tearing them down. "Actually," I said, putting my phone away, "I think everyone here has heard enough truth for one day." I turned to Jennifer. "You've made your point. Maren used you, and you used her right back. You're both responsible for what happened. but continuing this public destruction won't fix anything. Then I addressed the crowd. My marriage is over. My ex-wife made choices that destroyed our family. But she's still my daughter's mother, and Ruby doesn't deserve to have her entire support system demolished for your entertainment. I looked directly at Maren. We had an agreement. You'd take responsibility and rebuild your life without interference from me. This spectacle violates that agreement. I didn't ask Jennifer to come here, Maren said desperately. No, but you didn't try very hard to stop her either. You let her create this scene because you thought it might generate sympathy for you. I was right, and we both knew it. Maren had calculated that Jennifer's obvious instability would make her look reasonable by comparison. The agreement stands, I continued, but with a modification. You stay away from neighborhood events for the next year. Let people process what they've learned today without having to choose sides every time we're in the same space. Maren nodded quickly, clearly relieved that I wasn't pressing my advantage. I turned to Jennifer. And you need professional help. Real therapy, not just crisis management. What you did to my family was unforgivable, but destroying yourself won't undo it. Jennifer stared at me with naked hatred. You think you're so noble, don't you? The wronged husband taking the high road. I think I'm tired, I said honestly. Tired of being angry, tired of plotting revenge, tired of watching people I once cared about destroy themselves. The crowd began to disperse, the entertainment over. Some neighbors approached to offer support or express their shock at what they'd witnessed. Others simply left, probably eager to start spreading the story to anyone who'd missed the live performance. Ruby walked over to me, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered, for not completely destroying her. She's still your mother, I said. That has to count for something. As the park emptied, I found myself standing alone near the pavilion, where this whole nightmare had begun months earlier. The autumn sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Janet Morrison approached hesitantly. That was something, she said. That was the end, I replied. Finally. And it was. The war was over, not with total victory or crushing defeat, but with exhausted recognition that continuing the fight would destroy everyone involved. I walked home through the gathering dusk, feeling lighter than I had in months. The house would still be empty when I arrived, but it no longer felt like a tomb. It felt like a place where I could begin rebuilding whatever came next. Revenge had been satisfying in the moment, but it was a finite resource. Eventually, you ran out of enemies to destroy and had to figure out how to live with the aftermath. I was ready to start figuring that out. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my house, no longer our house, making coffee and reading the newspaper like a normal person. The divorce had been finalized with minimal drama. Maren had kept her word about not fighting for assets, and I'd kept mine about not actively sabotaging her attempts to rebuild. She'd found work as a medical office manager, a significant step down from her pharmaceutical career, but honest employment nonetheless. She was renting a small apartment across town and seeing a therapist twice a week. Ruby split her time between us, and we'd managed several civil conversations about scheduling and school events. It wasn't forgiveness exactly. The betrayal would always be there, a scar that twinged occasionally when I thought about what we'd lost. But it was something like acceptance, recognition that holding on to anger was more exhausting than letting it go. Jennifer had moved to another state after completing a court-ordered psychological evaluation. She'd sent Maren a letter of apology that was probably part of her therapy, taking responsibility for her manipulation while still blaming Maren for encouraging it. Some people never learned. Nolan had disappeared entirely, his LinkedIn profile deleted, his social media accounts closed. Last I'd heard, he was working construction in Florida, his executive career permanently destroyed. His ex-wife, Linda, had remarried and seemed genuinely happy. The neighborhood had absorbed the drama and moved on, as neighborhoods do. There were new scandals to discuss, new couples to gossip about. The Crowley family implosion was already becoming neighborhood legend, the kind of story people told newcomers to establish social hierarchies and warn about the dangers lurking beneath suburban perfection. I'd started dating again, tentatively and with careful attention to red flags I'd missed the first time around. Trust didn't come easily anymore, but isolation wasn't sustainable either. Ruby was thriving, having learned that her parents' marriage problems weren't her responsibility to fix. She'd been accepted to several good colleges and was planning to study psychology, probably inspired by the dysfunction she'd witnessed at home. "I want to understand why people make the choices they make," she'd told me. "Maybe help them make better ones." That seemed like a worthy goal. The doorbell rang, interrupting my morning routine. I opened it to find Dave from work, holding 2 cups of coffee and grinning. "Thought you might want company for the neighborhood garage sales," he said. "My wife sent me out to find bargains, and misery loves company." I grabbed my keys and joined him. We walked through the subdivision, browsing tables full of other people's discarded possessions, making small talk about work and weather and sports. It was perfectly ordinary, and after months of extraordinary drama, ordinary felt like a gift. At the Morrison's sale, Janet pulled me aside. "How are you doing, really?" she asked with genuine concern. "Better," I said honestly. "Different, but better." "Good. You deserve happiness, Elias. Don't let what happened make you afraid to find it." As Dave and I walked home, he asked the question I'd been expecting. "Any regrets? About how you handled everything?" I thought about it seriously. I regret that Ruby got hurt. I regret that I became someone I didn't recognize for a while. But I don't regret exposing the truth or protecting myself. Even the revenge parts? Especially the revenge parts. Sometimes people need to face consequences for their actions. Sometimes being nice just enables more bad behavior. But you stopped short of total destruction. Because I realized that total destruction would have destroyed me too. Revenge is like chemotherapy. It eliminates the cancer, but it's poison for everything else. We walked in comfortable silence, 2 middle-aged men processing the complexities of marriage, betrayal, and recovery. That evening, Ruby called to tell me about her day. She was excited about a school project, stressed about college applications, and completely absorbed in the normal concerns of a 17-year-old. "Love you, Dad," she said, before hanging up. "Love you too, kiddo." After she hung up, I sat in my living room, redecorated now with furniture that was entirely mine, and reflected on the journey from devastation to something like peace. The marriage was over, but the family had survived in a different form. The betrayal had been exposed, but the betrayers had been allowed to rebuild rather than being completely destroyed. Justice had been served, but mercy had prevented it from becoming vengeance. It wasn't the ending I'd planned when I first discovered Maren's lies. It was messier, more complicated, less satisfying than total victory would have been. But it was sustainable in a way that endless warfare wasn't. I picked up a book and settled into my reading chair, ready for whatever came next. The blizzard that had started everything had finally passed, leaving the landscape changed but not destroyed. Sometimes that was the best you could hope for.